and let's talk about the Detroit Pistons.
Ooh, yeah.
The Eastern Conference #1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Cade Cunningham, honestly, miraculously,
Yes,
has already returned from a collapsed lung no more than a month ago, which
crazy.
I can't even – I don't think people can really fathom what that looks like.
Mm-hmm.
A completely deflated lung being reinflated, having to recondition yourself and rehab, and it not popping again is crazy work.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I have noticed is I did watch his 3 games that he's played since he's come back in April. And the juice there in spurts, he's got it. But where
Right.
I've seen him kind of struggle, and this is actually something really interesting because you can take the two and put them together.
Mm-hmm.
March was his best shooting month of his career. He was shooting 41.7% from 3. Now we see him back, and I think he's hit 1 or 2 threes out of like 13, 14 attempts. It reminds me a lot of where Jason Tatum was about a month and a half ago, struggling to shoot the 3. You got to get your legs back.
Yeah.
But me and you discussed on that live. We did a live stream shortly after Cade Cunningham had his lung collapse. And we talked about how potentially the Pistons were on upset alert. But now I'll ask you again, now that we know Cade is back to some extent, are we thinking the Pistons are on upset alert here in the first round?
And now that Cade is back, I'm a lot more confident. The captain of the ship is there.
Yep.
And tip of the cap to Jalen Duren. He played grown man
out of his
basketball.
mind. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Grown man basketball while Cade was out. And this team they carry the spirit of the bad boys before them. It's really amazing to see, from the toughness of your captain and Cade on down to Duren, who at times looks like a more skilled version of Ben Wallace, just kind of completely shredded up, destroying the interior, owning the glass. But I'm looking at it now, and there's a chance that they draw the 76ers. And as I guess you could call a basketball analyst, I hate having to try to analyze what the 76ers are going to do, because the potential is always sky high. If Joel Embiid is healthy, he's a walking 30 and 15 every night. Paul George's comeback has looked amazing in his couple of games back. 39 points, 27 points, being efficient, kind of playing that third fiddle. Tyrese Maxey's having a career year.
Yes.
And early on, if this team would have sustained top 4 to 5 position and crept a little bit higher, he may have been in MVP discussions. He was playing that well. So that's not an easy matchup. I do believe in Detroit's baseline being the rebounding and the defense. Tyrese Maxey, it's not going to be an easy series. PG, it's not going to be an easy series. VJ, that is quite an introduction to playoff basketball.
Yeah.
Having to deal with these, perimeter demons that the Pistons have. So I could see this going 6 games. I could see it going 6. I could see it even going 7. But I am going to trust in Detroit. We don't see the lapses defensively. We don't see the lapses in effort. And I think learning as much as they did in that series against the Knicks last year, especially that game 1, they were up. And I heard Cade talk about it in this interview he did with KD. They were up 21 points in the Garden. That's a game you have to close. And it's a game you absolutely have to have. If you win that game, you've done your job on the road. You got one. Now you're coming back and you just got to protect the house. So there's a possibility they went up 3-1. And then I forget which game it was, but the Knicks ended up getting away with a terrible no call in that series on Hardaway Jr. And you just look at all those dominoes fall, and now you know just how tightly contested. And like you said, every possession matters in the postseason.
Yes.
So I think there's going to be an upgraded level of urgency. And I do like them. I like them over the 76ers. I like them over Orlando. Whoever draws that 8 seed, I think that they can handle them. It might be a tough series, but they can get by.
I completely agree with you. And the one thing that I think is different from this Pistons team compared to last year, the one thing that stands out to me is the physical evidence that we have of production defensively turning into offense. This year, and I actually didn't know this until I was doing some research yesterday. They're number one in the league in stocks. And for those of you who are listening that don't know what that is, it's just steals and blocks combined. They average 17 stocks a game. The next highest, I think, is 14 and a half. So
that's crazy.
They're doing that. They have 4 players. If you filter out 20 minutes per game, that's like your bottom line of players. They have 4 players in the top 30 in defensive rating. They're number 2 overall in the league. But this is the actual difference, is now they're number 10 in transition scoring. I believe last year they were 17, which doesn't sound like a big difference, but that's the difference in a series right there. They were playing good defense last year. This year, though, they're pairing that into turning it into points. Yeah, that's where the Pistons have really taken off, specifically Asar Thompson. And, I think we're seeing the future Marcus Smart of the league. And that's a respectful comment. We're talking defensive player of the year from a guard. I think you did a video about this just a couple weeks ago. He's got to be the best defensive guard in the league.
Yeah.
Period.
On the ball. It's crazy.
Yes. But the Thompson twins overall are just athletic. I don't even know how to describe it. Otherworldly, right?
Yeah.
But I want to ask you about this one guy that I don't have a lot of knowledge on. Haven't got to see much of his game. Dennis Jenkins, if I'm correct. Tell me a little bit about him, because I've seen that he stepped up in a major way while Cade has been absent. So what do you think what do you think his role looks like in the Pistons postseason?
I think it really looks like being that ball handler off the bench and being able to create for this team, because Cade really is a one-man offense. You get him the ball, and if he has a pick and roll, if he has a half viable big man, you've got an offense right there, because he gives you so many options out of it. But Dennis Jenkins is able to give you that on a much smaller scale, but more so geared towards scoring. He had one of his first nights, really being kind of pushed into the rotation, had 27 in a game winner for them in a night where they were missing a ton of rotation guys. And so he carries the toughness that they need, carries that will to compete, does knock down threes on lower volume, but at a much higher efficiency than most guys on this roster do. He's up at nearly 37.5% from 3, and that's a very respectable number. He can, get downhill a little bit, create some separation. So there's going to be some nights where Cade really has to backpack things, right? And he's going to see extra bodies. He's going to see doubles. Can Dennis step in, and can Dennis give you 15 on solid efficiency game 4 on the road? If he can do that, that's enough to swing a playoff series. If he can get you to a game 6 and the energy's up, but man, he's starting to get some shots in. He's starting to knock some shots down. I think that's where he steps in and fills a massive void for this team, because the rest of these guys more so work in the orbit around Cade. They're rollers, they're cutters, they're catch and shoot guys, but you can give him the ball and say, hey, can you make something happen? And that's where he steps up and provides something different for this roster.
That's a great description for anybody who's not familiar with Dennis Jenkins' game. Go check that out, because that's actually really helpful for me. I haven't got to see many of those games because, honestly, for all the NBA haters out there, there have been so many other playoff contingent games happening recently that I've been having to pay attention to. So I'm going to talk to you real quick about my biggest worry for this Pistons team, and then I want to know yours. My biggest worry for this Pistons team is that outside of Cade, Jalen Duren scores the ball. I think he's averaging like 20 points per game, right? Somewhere along those lines.
Yeah.
But he is not a shot creator, right? his production, like many traditional centers, is based off of the offense running out of somebody like Cade Cunningham. Mm-hmm. To me, there's not a lot of volume shot creation on this roster. Everything else is pretty. Tobias Harris could sometimes get in his bag, but like I can see your face, like it's And so I worry if we were talking about Cade and his injury. If he's having an off night, who is it that's going to step up? Because last year I knew it was Malik Beasley. Beasley could shoot the lights out. And I've mentioned this several times throughout the season. The Pistons made a huge mistake with not re-signing him. I get the whole gambling stuff and whatnot. Duncan Robinson has played great in his spot. He's having his second best season of his career this year. He's shooting I think he's averaging 12 points per game, but he's shooting 42% from three, right? Yeah. But asking Duncan Robinson to get into the Duffy bag, right, and pull out something in a playoff game is a story that you don't want to have as a Pistons team trying to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, or honestly just trying to win a playoff series first time in I think almost 20 years, maybe 20 plus years now. So that's my biggest worry is they don't have enough volume shot creation. What is your biggest worry about this Pistons team?
Honestly, there's 1A and 1B. That was 1B for me. The 1A is the 3-point attempts in volume. They are 30th in 3-point attempts per game. Well, 29th in 3-point
I did not know that.
Game.
Wow.
And that's scary. That's scary because it really then boils down to a simple numbers game. You can have a team that you might be better than, but if they're getting up more threes than you are, and you are shooting a relatively comparable percentage, those points start to add up, and that's not something you want to find yourself on the far end of the spectrum on in a playoff series. And I'm looking at who they could draw early on, the Hornets. If they do draw the Hornets get shots up. Yeah. And the Hornets have Knippel. They have Brandon Miller. LaMelo Ball will not bat an eye at taking 16 3-point shots a night. It's really scary. So for that series, if you have a cold night or two, all of a sudden, if the Hornets get hot, you could be down 2-0. And that's just not a position you want to be in. And we're not even going to think about Boston, who gets up threes, they offensive rebound the ball, and they don't turn the ball over. So that's a nightmare for a team that doesn't get 3-point attempts up. And just to clarify the point I was making with the Charlotte Hornets, they are second in 3-point attempts a night. They shoot the three ball 43 times a night. Detroit shoots it 30. So even if Detroit is knocking it down, that's too big of a gap to try to overcome. So for me, that's pretty scary. And also I have to pair it exactly with what you were talking about. Yes, Tobias Harris might be able to post up 2 or 3 times, maybe face up, give me a pull-up jumper here and there. But man, if Cade is struggling and we need someone else to really put the ball in the bucket, I'm not overly confident at our options on who we're turning to.
Right. It reminds me a lot of where kind of where Jalen Brunson has been at with the Knicks. Now, Karl Anthony Towns, even Cat himself is not really a shot creator. Neither is OG or Mikal Bridges. Right. And so when you kind of shut down that Jalen Brunson ISO at the top of the key, where do the Knicks go? And I'm thinking the same thing. And my notes here are, it's a question mark, is can Cade himself stretch the floor? Because if he can shoot the three, then teams have to spread out, right? Because you have to guard Cade at the top heavy, especially in a pick and roll with Jalen Durant, because then that opens up the pick and roll. Then that opens up a flash from the corner to the top right wing. That's the beauty of, and this is where I think JB Bickerstaff has really earned his stripes as my coach of the year this year. He's done a brilliant job of doing that in the half court. Where I think the Pistons just play so well is the transition.
Yes,
you're talking about the Hornets. Man, I get such a mix. I guess people in my comments have called me a Hornets hater. And I look at them kind of like any other high-powered offense that doesn't have a lot of defensive prowess. Now, Diabate plays out of this world at the rim.
Yeah.
And so does Kalkbrenner off the bench, right? They're great rim protectors, but 3-point opposition defense is kind of where I worry. But at the same time, like you're saying here, the Hornets' best draw out of the 2 seeds that they could get is the 8 seed to go up against the Pistons, because they can't really shoot the 3. The Hornets' biggest struggle is they can't really defend the 3. So it is a match made in heaven for them. But the 76ers to me, or I'm sorry, not the 76ers, the Orlando Magic to me are my biggest worry about the Pistons. Not because I don't think the Magic could win that series, but I think that they will beat the hell out of the Pistons players. Like, like you walk into a playoff series with the Orlando Magic, you're walking out on a pair of crutches, right?
Yes.
Like, Paolo has played better as of recent. The Magic overall as a team have struggled, and we're talking, like, I think everybody's kind of mentioning the drama with the coaching staff and like the messaging's not being heard. But man, every night you've got basically a brick wall out there at all points in times, and Paolo on the defensive end. Offensively, I mean, he just bangs down low.
Yeah.
That to me is my worst nightmare for the Pistons, who have a superstar that likes to go to the rack all of the time. I'm worried that he's going to continuously do that and get banged up going forward. But like you said, I think I do agree with you that the Hornets provide the biggest like threat to win the series, I guess, just because if the Pistons are cold and the Hornets are hot, if the Hornets are hot, they can kind of compete with pretty much anybody in the East.
Yeah.
I mean, if LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller and Con Knipple are hitting 20 plus threes a night, I mean, how can you lose games on a consistent basis? So but that's the Pistons. What are your thoughts about that?
I love the shout to Orlando there. That series does present a few issues, and you look at the Pistons, they don't, to me, have a lot of true forwards. They have a lot of big guards in Ron Holland, Karis LeVert, Asar Thompson, even Duncan Robinson. And then you kind of go straight to big man. It's Jalen Duren, Tobias Harris is Tobias Harris. But then you've got
Isaiah
Stewart, Paul Reed. So there isn't a ton of forwards on that roster. And you need a matchup for Paolo. Who are you putting on him? Is it Asar? I think Asar is a really good defender, but is he strong enough to bang with Paolo?
That was my thought. And if you put him up against Paolo and he kind of slows him down, how many times is Paolo putting that shoulder in the middle of his chest? And what does that look like going into round 2? That was my thought.
And then, okay, let's say you do put Asar on him. Who are you putting on Franz? Because Franz likes to get downhill. He likes to get to the rim. He's not going to bail you out with jumpers. So you've got to have another matchup for him. And then you got to put someone on Desmond Bane. And the thing with Desmond Bane is, yes, he likes his jumpers. He gets the ball up. But, like, he knows how to be physical. And also, he's just a general irritant. Like, he knows... Yes. I could easily see him getting a cheap tech off Cade in the first half of a first game that they matched up with them, or getting Isaiah Stewart ejected, little things like that.
Yeah.
That swings a playoff series. And I could see that being a factor. As much as I'm not a fan of Jamal Mosley at times, he knows how to coach a good defense. And these guys have playoff experience. They met Boston at their height twice. And obviously, it didn't go their way, but that's a valuable playoff experience against a world-class team in the Boston Celtics. So I could see that. I could see that series putting a dent in their gas tank going into the rest of the playoffs, which isn't what you want. You don't want to hobble out of a first-round playoff series.
I was about to say, let me. I'm real quick. I'm just pulling this up so I make sure. Yeah, the Boston Celtics last year played the Orlando Magic in the first round. I guarantee you ask Derek White, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, how they were feeling in game 1 of that Knicks series after those dog fights with Orlando. I can guarantee you that they would have rather played any other team in that first round. because they just get in there. They just play so physical. If you know what, this is a great shout. All of the NBA haters, if you loved the 90s, you want to see 90s basketball, watch the Orlando Magic take on the Detroit Pistons in the first round of this playoffs. You'll see some 1990s basketball. That's for damn sure.
You know, I have a quote, and as soon as you mentioned Jaylen Brown, I remembered him talking about the toll of that series. And, you know, he mentioned that the Orlando Magic's physicality is not even basketball, and it caused him a dislocated finger in game 3. You will not leave a series with this team, like you said, whole. You are going to walk away hurt. There is going to be guys that are banged up. The fatigue level is going to be higher. And yeah, like they're just – here's the thing. Like you said, they might sweep them. They might beat them in 5 games, but you're going to walk away from that series hurting and hurting bad.
Yeah. Basically, what you're doing is you're finishing this series with the Magic, and you're hoping and praying to God that the 4-5 series is going to a 7-game series. You've got 2 or 3 extra days of rest to recover. Right. Maybe go to the hospital and get an IV or a stent or something like that. Oh man. So yeah, that's the Pistons for you. That it is a team that I've been rooting for kind of all season long. I've loved the Pistons ever since I remember watching the Bad Boys documentary when I was, I think, like 10 or 11 years old. And I've loved the vibe, the culture of Detroit. It's one of my favorite cities in America. And I love that they're back on top now, that they're finally returning to the hard work ethos, and it's actually working out and making serious success in the league. So I love that this team has embodied the city of Detroit in their play style. Thanks so much for watching our playoff previews. Be sure to go check out the other ones as well. And huge shout out to Colin Hatfield. This guy is one of the best ball knowers on social media. You can find him on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Colin.Hatfield Show. This is one of the best ball knowers in and outside the game. Be sure to go check him out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.